Okay, campers, rise and shine, and don't forget your booties because it's cold out there today.
It's cold out there every day. What is this, Miami Beach?
Not hardly. And you can expect hazardous travel later today with that blizzard thing.
That blizzard thing. Oh well, here's the report. The National Weather Service is calling for a big blizzard thing.
Yes, they are. But there's another reason why today is especially exciting.
Especially cold
Especially cold. Okay, but the big question on everybody's lips,
on their chapped lips.
on their chapped lips, right? But do you think Phil is going to come out and see his shadow?
Punxsutawney Phil!
That's right, Woodchuck-Chuckers. It's
Groundhog
Groundhog
Day!
Day. It actually is Groundhog Day, and just like the movie, Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow, and we have 6 more weeks of winter. Dun dun dun. Which I actually learned a few days early when a squirrel ripped off a section of my grill cover and took it to line his nest with. So it's pretty smart considering it's waterproof. But he's gonna have the best nest in the neighborhood now. So I'll be replacing that later this spring.
Oh no!
Well, you are listening to Millennial Meets Gen Z 90's edition. I'm Allison, the millennial.
I'm Hannah, the Gen Z.
And this podcast, where we revisit the movies, TV shows, and pop culture moments that shaped the 90's with nostalgia on one side and first time reactions on the other. Each week, I bring the context, and Hannah brings the fresh perspective and Gen Z interpretations, teaching me some of those along the way. Together, we figure out why these stories made a generation. So, as you can tell, our movie today is Groundhog Day, a comedy romance from 1993. You can access this movie on Netflix if you have the ad free version, or on Philo or Amazon Prime rental for like 99 cents. So, our synopsis is a cynical TV weatherman finds himself reliving the same day over and over and over again. He goes on location to a small town of Punxsutawney to film a report about their annual Groundhog Day. His predicament drives him to distraction until he sees a way of turning around the situation to his advantage. So, Hannah, what did you think overall?
I think my first thought is that groundhogs are hideous. I have a newfound distaste for groundhogs. Phil the groundhog was not cute. I was really hoping he would be cute.
What did you think groundhogs looked like? Bunnies?
Just like a little, I kind of thought they looked like beavers, but like cuter. They, no, I don't like their teeth. Their teeth make me like uncomfortable and like their fur, I don't know. But I loved the movie. Have you ever seen Before I Fall?
No.
It reminds me of that movie so much because it's kind of about the same thing. Like
Okay.
the yeah, like the whole someone just living the same day over and over again. But in that movie, she dies. So it's a little bit different in
Yeah, but
regards to that.
I mean, people have seen this movie leading up to probably that.
Yeah.
I don't know when that one was made, but I would think that this has inspired. There's a lot of movies that then like are the same day relived over until somebody figures out something that they need to know. Um,
Yeah. That makes sense. It was made in 2017, I believe.
okay.
So, yes.
Okay, so then this had been in existence for a while, and there are a few
Yeah.
movies that have come after it with that same concept. So,
Yeah.
it's very possible they have the same interaction.
No, super good movie though. I loved how it demonstrated his different grief, like his different stages of grief
Oh
throughout
yeah.
the movie.
It's like
Like,
psychological warfare of having to like figure out how you feel from one day to the next when you're reliving the same
yeah.
thing.
No, and he was kind of smart about it. In all fairness, he was kind of smart about it. He was using it to his advantage, which that whole thing I didn't like when he was just being a crazy criminal and doing his thing. I was like, okay, this is a bit crazy. If you want to get better and get out of it, let's use our brain and be a better human being. But I don't know. I thought it was cool that he was a news anchor slash weatherman. Like that resonated with me, formerly being in journalism. So I was like, oh my God, this is kind of cool. But he was kind of an a-hole, and I didn't particularly like that. So,
Yeah.
but he
I
grew.
mean, And I think that's the point is, and this happens, I mean, we've talked about it before, but this happens a lot in 90s movies where there's growth within the character to come around and you're not supposed to like them in the beginning. Like they're
Yeah.
usually unlikable people. And then you end up actually adoring them in the end.
Yeah.
Um, well, this movie was written by Danny Rubin, who is best known for like Hear No Evil and SFW. But the screenplay was also helped by the incredible Harold Ramis, who I think is where it gets its comedy, to be honest with you. He's a writer, but he's written things like Meatballs, Caddyshack, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Back to School, Analyze This, Bedazzled, and Year One. As an actor, he's also been in a lot of those movies. Stripes, National Lampoon's Vacation, Ghostbusters, Baby Boom, Airheads, As Good as It Gets, High Fidelity, Orange County, Knocked Up. And in this movie, he played the doctor. So you'll see him later in the movie as the doctor. And he was also the director of this movie, having directed many movies that he's written in and starred in. So you'll see him a lot in some of those big comedy knockouts, both in the movie, directing behind the scenes, and having written a lot of the script. So let's rewind. We open on Phil giving the weather report on a blue screen, pre-green screening. Following his weather report, he walks over to the news desk and says he won't be there for the 10 o'clock because he's going to Punxsutawney for the country's oldest Groundhog Festival. If the groundhog wakes and sees his shadow, we have 6 more weeks of winter. His co-anchor asks if it's his third time out there, and Phil corrects her on screen with a little disdain. 4, Nan, 4. You could tell he's not super happy about this upcoming trip. Well, Phil is played by Bill Murray, who we've recently seen as himself in Space Jam. He is a legend, and especially now where people have to email him and hope that they're interested in their emails. He did several seasons of Saturday Night Live in the 70s and 80s. He's been in Caddyshack, Stripes, Ghostbusters, Scrooged, What About Bob? And there are so many things, amazing things in his career. They're off the air when the co-anchor, says, "Have fun in Punxsutawney, Phil." And he responds, "For your information, hairdo, there is a major network interested in me." Now, the anchor woman is played by Carol Bivens, who was also in Defending Your Life in the Division. So she's somebody that's known as well. Larry chimes in and says that would be the Home Shopping Network is interested in Phil. Phil's assistant, Kenny, of course, offers to take Phil's spot if he's not back in time. You can tell he really wants to move ahead and says Rita, their new producer, wants to stick around in Punxsutawney for other events. So it's not going to be a one and done. Now Kenny, he's a very, very minor part in the beginning of this movie, but I do want to point out who he is. He's played by Willie Garson, who's known for his role. You would have seen him in Sex and the City as Stanford. He's also in the show White Collar as Mozzie. That's one of my favorite shows. He's also been in a great funny movie called Troop Beverly Hills. He's been in Freaky Friday, Mars Attacks, There's Something About Mary, Fever Pitch, Just Like Heaven, and so many things. But something else you may recognize him in is he's also been in a few episodes of Boy Meets World and an episode of Girl Meets World.
Oh my God.
So I figured you would be like, oh, cool.
Wait, that is cool.
So Phil looks over to Rita, who is wearing a blue coat on the blue screen. She's playing with the blue screen with having her body disappear, and her head and hands are just floating around. And Kenny's like, "You guys are going to have a lot of fun." Phil says, "She's fun, but not my kind of fun." Now, Rita, the fun Rita, is played by Annie McDowell. She is known for Sex, Lies, and Videotape, Four Weddings and a Funeral, and Michael. She has a great list of movies that she's in, but right now she's killing it in my newest favorite show, The Way Home, as Del Landry. I have been bugging Hannah about this show for weeks because I'm obsessed with it.
She's in it? Wait,
Yeah,
I need
she's
to
in
know
it.
what role does she play?
She plays the grandmother. So she
Oh,
plays Del Landry. So yeah, she's great. We see the news van driving through the city, then the suburbs, and heading to Punxsutawney. Phil tells Larry he's probably leaving their station PBH, so this will be the last time that he's doing the Groundhog event together. I love when people are leaving or they're thinking of leaving and they are just like, oh, they keep saying, "Oh, you're gonna miss me and I won't be here for this next event." It's just like, this is not an airport. You don't need to announce your departure every 5 minutes.
yeah.
Stop it. Um, So Larry says he doesn't understand what's wrong with covering the groundhog. He said at his last station he covered the swallows returning to Capistrano 6 years in a row, which sounds a little bit boring. Phil complains that the groundhog event doesn't really make him look like he's going anywhere. Rita says she likes Groundhog Day. It's cute and people like it.
Yeah.
Phil rants that those people are morons. I would be one of those morons. I do like it a little bit, so I will
Yeah.
admit to that. They pull
Me
up
as
to the
well.
hotel, and Phil gets out and says he won't stay here. It's a flea bag, but that's actually where she's staying. She booked him at a nice bed and breakfast on Cherry Street, which he's happy about because she's keeping the talent happy. And this is when she invites Phil to dinner with her and Larry, and Phil declines, making fun of Larry's eating. And then Phil gets back in the van, and Larry says to Rita, "Did he just call himself the talent?" And they chuckle. Now, Larry's played by Chris Elliott. He's known for There's Something About Mary, The Abyss, and Cabin Boy. 90s kids will know him as Snowplow Man in the movie Snow Day. He was excellent in that, being the villain. But I think most people these days will know him as Roland Shit in Schitt's Creek, which is an amazing role. The next morning, the clock turns 6 a.m. and the radio alarm kicks on, singing Sonny and Cher's "I've Got You, Babe." Now, the radio DJs are talking about Blizzard, chapped lips, and it's Groundhog Day, as you heard at the beginning of our show. Phil leaves his room and encounters another guest who greets him, "Morning. Do you think it's going to be an early spring?" Phil sarcastically says, "I'm predicting March 21st, which is the official day of spring for everybody that's listening." And the guest laughs and says, "Good guess. I actually think that is the first day of spring." Like he finally caught on. The
Oh
man
my
in the
God.
hallway is actually Ken Hudson, who many may recognize as Santa in Home Alone. So he's the Santa in Home Alone, but he's also in Armageddon and a great comedy, Down Periscope. I recommend that one. It's a good one. Phil goes down, and the B&B owner, Miss Lancaster, asks if he slept well, and he said he slept alone. He asks for an espresso, which she doesn't have, and they talk about the weather. She says there's talk of it possibly being a blizzard, and he turns into the weatherman, and she was just honestly trying to make chit chat.
Yeah.
She asks if he's checking out today, and he said chances of departure 100%. Just like really dumb. Miss Lancaster is
Yeah.
actually played by Angela Patton, who was in a lot of TV episodes in the 90s, as well as American Wedding, Flatliners, and Lolita.
Hmm.
Walking down the street in Punxsutawney, Phil passes a homeless man and pretends to look for money as he walks on by. A man was crossing the street and sees Phil and calls out to him, "Phil? Phil Connors? I thought that was you." Phil tries to brush the man off with a "thanks for watching," but Ned fires back, Don't tell me that you don't remember me, because I sure as heck fire remember you." This is Ned Ryerson from Case Western High. Apparently, they went to high school together. Phil has no idea who that is. Apparently, Ned Ryerson used to date his sister until Phil stopped him. Ned sells insurance now and is trying to sell Phil on life insurance. Phil pushes off Ned's invite to dinner and says, "Great to see you, Needlehead. Take care," because he introduced himself as Ned the Needlehead Ryerson. Then he steps off the curb into an icy puddle and soaks his shoe and pant leg. Ned laughs and says, "Watch out for that first step. It's a doozy." Now, Ned Estate, played by Stephen Tobolowsky, which I can never pronounce his last name, so I apologize, but who is known for his role in Thelma and Louise, Wild Hogs, and Single White Female. But he's also in Spaceballs. He's in Mississippi Burning, Mr. Magoo, Don't Look Under the Bed, Freaky Friday, Little Black Book. He was Sandy Ryerson in Glee, so you might recognize him as that if you watch that show. And he's been in so many other movies. But lately, he's done a lot of holiday movies with Lacey Chabert. So if you watch any of the shows about where they're fighting with Christmas lights and their neighborhood is supposed to be illuminated, and he's like always on point with his decorations, and Lacey's not doing enough. You'll see him there. There's a few in that series of movies. Well,
Okay.
Phil is annoyed with the pothole situation, but he continues on to park for the groundhog celebration to the park. And Rita sees him in the park, and Phil, we're over here. She's loving this. She said that some people have partied all night until they got cold, then they warmed by the fire, then they went back out to dance and sing some more. And Phil asks if she slept okay or if she tossed and turned without him. Ugh, gross. Groundhog time. Phil starts his broadcast once a year. The eyes of the nation turn to this tiny hamlet in western Pennsylvania to watch a master at work. The master, Punxsutawney Phil, the world's most famous weatherman, who, as legend has it, can predict the coming of an early spring. So I guess the question we have to ask ourselves today, does Phil feel lucky? We watch the guy with the stick knock on the door of his tree stump, which I didn't even realize. I forgot that they keep him in a tree stump. I don't think he's in there all the time. I just think that was just for the event. But
Yeah,
then they
I
open the
hope
door
so.
and they get out the groundhog and talk to it to proclaim the weather. Rita says, "Aw, isn't he cute?" And Phil tucks his upper lip onto his teeth and says, "Hey, do you like guys with prominent upper teeth?" And she shakes and says no, and they make buck teeth faces together. The man
Oh,
on the stage unrolls the scroll and reads, "This February 2nd at 7:20 and 30 seconds, Punxsutawney Phil, the seer of seers, prognosticator of prognosticators, emerged reluctantly but alertly in Punxsutawney, PA, and stated in groundhog ease." Didn't know that was a language. And I studied linguistics. I definitely see a shadow. Sorry, folks. 6 more weeks of winter, to which everyone's bummed, obviously, but it's also on par for the blizzard that's being reported.
yeah.
Now, the man reading the scroll, who plays like part of the town leaders, his name is Buster. He's actually played by Brian Doyle Murray, and he is Bill Murray's older brother. I don't know if you knew that.
No, wait, that's actually so cool. What?
Yes. So he's known for being a writer. And I think he might have actually helped as well. It wasn't mentioned in IMDb, but it was kind of like in his bio that he helped on this movie as well. But he's also been a writer and acting in Caddyshack and JFK. He was also on Saturday Night Live in the late 70s, early 80s. He was in 16 Candles and Wayne's World. He has been in tons of movies and shows. Something you may or may not know him from is he's also the voice of the Flying Dutchman in SpongeBob SquarePants. So
Hmm.
if you've ever seen SpongeBob SquarePants, he's in that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Bill gets back on to record the reaction segment. Now, this is a time where television really fails to capture the true excitement of a large squirrel predicting the weather. I, for one, am very grateful to have been here. From Punxsutawney, this is Phil Connors. So long. Rita tells him to try it again without the sarcasm, but Phil refuses. We see them driving out of Punxsutawney in the van as the blizzard starts around them and the traffic is backed up on the highway from a semi accident. Phil says, "What is happening?" And Larry says, "I don't know, Phil. Maybe it's that blizzard we're not supposed to get." They're stopped on the highway, and Phil gets out and walks up to check out the situation. The cop tells him they're closing the road, but Phil doubles down on there isn't going to be a blizzard, like they're standing in one. The cop tells him he can go back to Punxsutawney or he can freeze to death. His choice. At a gas station, Phil is on the phone learning that the lines are down. A guy accidentally bumps him in the head with the shovel. Now, I wondered if the shovel incident was like what caused him to then relive the next several like the days over and over again. I never thought about that
God.
before, but on the rewatch, I was like, I wonder if the shovel like was a purposeful thing or if it was just an
Hmm.
annoyance because he was already a like annoyed guy.
Oh my God, I didn't even think about that. That would make sense though if it like caused him to have a concussion and like, you know.
Yeah, but they didn't see it on the in the doc. Well, anyway, we'll get to it.
Yeah,
But
the doctor.
back in Punxsutawney, Phil is getting a drink at the bar. Rita invites him to the groundhog dinner, and Phil declines, saying, "I had groundhog for lunch." Phil says instead he's going back to his room, take a hot shower, and maybe read, but he goes to take a shower that only has cold water. Leaving the bathroom to go back to his room, he asks the owner, "Isn't there any hot water?" In which she said, "No, there wouldn't be today." Then wishes him sweet dreams. The next morning, the alarm goes off with the radio playing Sonny and Cher's "I Got You, Babe." Phil wakes up and hears the DJs coming on saying the same thing as they did before, and Phil thinks they're playing yesterday's tape. Then they say, it's Groundhog Day. And he looks out the window to find it's not covered in snow from the blizzard, but again, it's just like the day before. Once he's dressed, he leaves his room and runs into the other guest who says again, morning, off to see the groundhog? Think it'll be in early spring? And Phil says, didn't we do this yesterday? The guest says, I don't know what you mean. And Phil picks him up, pushing him against the wall and says, don't do this to me, pork chop. What day is this? He's got those like quips ready to go.
Oh my
Um,
God, I have that written down. Don't mess with me, more pork chop. That
yeah.
is so funny.
The guest tells him it's February 2nd, Groundhog Day, and Phil lets him go and says, I thought this was yesterday, and laughs, heading down the stairs. Downstairs, same thing. The owner asks him if he slept well, and they have a similar conversation. Phil then asks her, do you ever have deja vu, Miss Lancaster? She responds, I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen. And she asks again when he'll be checking out, and he says, I think the chance of departure is 75 to 80%. Phil heads out into the town where everyone and asks where everyone is going, and they're all going to Gobbler's Knob, the park, for Groundhog Day. Then Phil is spotted by Ned Ryerson, who Phil knows now and guesses his name correctly, which only encourages Ned to keep talking and trying to sell him life insurance. He still steps off the curb and into a puddle, and he's back at the park where we hear the Pennsylvania polka and is called over by Rita. Phil tells Rita he needs someone to give him a good hard slap in the face, and she's more than happy to do this. After slapping him, she says, how's that? And he says, good. Then Larry offers to hit the other cheek. Phil tells Rita he's having a problem. He feels weird about it. She tells him after the broadcast they can talk about it. He gives a weird broadcast, goes back to his room, takes a cold shower, then breaks the pencil before going to bed early. At 6 a.m. on the dot, the radio alarm clock wakes up in the morning saying, I got you, babe, by Sonny and Cher, and the pencil is still unbroken on the floor. He gets ready, heads out for the day, encounters the guest, dodges him, and heads right out without talking to the owner, shoves Ned Ryerson this time and tries to run away, still steps in the puddle and heads to the park. He asks Rita to talk to him, meeting him in the diner. She says they have work to do, and he says, no, I've already done it twice, which would definitely be me. I would definitely have freaked out like that. I would be like, I've already done this.
Yeah.
Not doing it again. Rita and Phil meet in the diner, and he tells her he's reliving the same day over and over, and she thinks he's lying. He wants her to help him figure it out. The adjacent table overhears Rita call him Phil, and they turn around like the groundhog, Phil? Look out for your shadow there, bud. And they laugh, and Phil tells them, morons, your bus is leaving. Phil says he's not going back to Pittsburgh because of the blizzard. He says he needs help. And they take him to a doctor who tells him no spots, no plots, no tumors, no lesions, no aneurysms. The doctor refers him to a psychiatrist, but the psychiatrist has no experience in this area and says they should meet again. How's tomorrow for you? It's just frustrating for Phil, who's reliving the same day over and over. At the bowling alley, Phil is drinking. I was in the Virgin Islands once, he says. I met a girl. We ate lobster, drank pina coladas. At sunset, we made love like sea otters. That was a pretty good day. Why couldn't I get that day over and over? Also, what about sea otters? I was so confused. I was like, why are we bringing other like
Yeah.
little groundhog like mammals into this?
No, that's such a weird analogy too.
It
And like,
was so
why
weird.
sea otters of
I
all
don't want to even,
animals?
I didn't want to Google it, that's for sure.
Yeah,
So,
no, me either.
the other guy at the bar, Gus, says he's a glass half empty type of guy, Phil is. And Phil proceeds to drive both drunk guys, Gus and Ralph, home. And he asks them, what if there were no tomorrow? And Gus says, then there would be no consequences and we could do whatever we wanted. And Phil says, that's true. We could do whatever we want. Then he proceeds to run over a mailbox. And Gus says, this is my favorite line. Gus says, Phil, if we wanted to hit mailboxes, we could have let Ralph drive, who is like the most wasted of the three of them. Now,
Yeah.
Gus is played by Rick Ducommun, who is known for his role in The Burbs, Spaceballs, and Scary Movie. He's also in Little Monsters, Encino Man, and Blank Check, so we will see him again. Ralph is played by Rick Overton, who's known for Willow, Eight-Legged Freaks, The Informant, and you'll see him as the maitre d' in Mrs. Doubtfire.
Oh.
Having seen this accident, a local cop pulls out after them, and Phil turns, making the cop hit the newspaper stands. Phil says, "It's the same thing your whole life. Clean up your room, stand up straight, pick up your feet, take it like a man, be nice to your sister, don't mix beer and wine ever. And oh, yeah, don't drive on the railroad track." And Gus says, "Phil, that's one I happen to agree with." And then they drive down the railroad track. Phil says you have to take big chances as they drive towards a train, and then he pulls off just before the train hits them. He attempts to evade the cops and crashes the car into other cars. The cop comes up and he orders cheeseburgers, fries, a shake, Cokes, and the drunk guy Ralph adds, "And some flapjacks." And Phil says, "Is it too early for flapjacks?" They throw him in jail, and the next morning he wakes up in the VNB to "I got you, babe." He's happy not to be in jail, so he asks Miss Lancaster if the cops have come by, but they haven't, and he kisses Miss Lancaster. Then he punches Ned Ryerson out later on the street. He avoids the puddle this time, eats his weight in the food at the diner with Rita. The waitress gives him coffee and pours it into his mouth. Rita asks him if he worries about cholesterol, lung cancer, love handles, and he says he doesn't worry about anything anymore. He doesn't even have to floss. Then he shoves a whole donut into his mouth. Rita quotes Sir Walter Scott at him and calls him egocentric. And then he tells them that he's going to stay and finish his food. He's not going to leave with them. As he's leaving, he befriends a woman in pink, Nancy Taylor. He asks her what her high school is, who is her 12th grade English teacher, and then he leaves. The next day, he heads to the park where he sees Nancy. He pretends to know her and then hit on her and ask if they can meet up after his report. Later, they're making out, and he says, "Oh, Rita." She says, and she's like, "What?" And he says he loves her and asks her to marry him, which he doesn't obviously have to uphold. But also, like, wouldn't he have been worried that one day this is going to end and some of these consequences were going to be real?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Can you imagine doing all this stuff and thinking it's just a fluke and you won't have to deal with it, and then like it all comes at you at once? That's
Right.
horrible. Oh my God.
Well, later by himself, Phil is predicting everything out loud, including the cash from the bank, and he steals one bag and buys a Rolls Royce and a new outfit dressed like a cowboy. Then he goes to the movies with some other woman dressed like a French maid. He told her it was a costume party. Nancy doesn't remember him as she walks by. Later, he's asking Rita, what does she do if she had one day to live? He wants to know everything about her. He gets her to talk to him with coffee and a donut. And Rita says she wants what everyone wants. And she asks what he wants, and he said her. So, what is she looking for? And she says humbly, like she wants somebody humble, intelligent, supportive, and funny. And he thinks that all this describes him, which is so far
Yeah.
not true.
Oh.
We see Phil just steal the distributor cap and leads out of the news van and walk away. And then next, he's at the bar meeting Rita, saying, "What are the chances of getting out today?" The van is broken, so Rita says Larry is working on it. He buys her a drink. She orders the sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. He ordered something else, and the next time Phil comes in and orders the same drink as her, and she's surprised. "That's my favorite drink." And he says, "It's mine too." They toast to the groundhog, but she said she always toasts to world peace, and he does not like the drink. He comes back again, this time toasting to world peace. He keeps trying over and over with her, saying what she wants to hear, getting more information from her every time, then coming back the next time to try to win her over with the information he knows. They make a snowman. They get pummeled by snowballs with kids. They dance in the pavilion while it snows outside. They walk back in the snow. Rita is amazed, and she starts the day with one expectation and ends the day with a different one. He takes her into the B&B and starts kissing her, but this is way too fast for her, and she's not comfortable and wants to leave. He says, "I love you" to her just to get her to stay with him, and she catches him in a lie and slaps him and says, "That's for making me care about you." The next day, he's rushing through the lines and the setup, and it's definitely really fake. It's not natural, and it's very weird. She slaps him a lot over the repeat several days.
Girl
Um,
boss. Girl boss.
because he's going about it all wrong. So
Oh
he walks
no,
home
yeah.
alone. The next repeat we see is him at the park for Groundhog Day, and he looks rough. He's living in a nightmare, and you can tell.
Yeah.
The next day, he just doesn't even go. He's watching Jeopardy with other guests, and he knows all the answers because obviously he's seen it before, but they're amazed.
Yeah.
The next
That's
morning,
cool.
he's back at the park and ranting on his broadcast. This is pitiful. 1,000 people freezing their butts off, waiting to worship a rat. What a hype. Groundhog Day used to mean something in this town. They used to pull the hog out and they used to eat it. I was like, should I Google that? I don't even know if that's true.
Yeah.
Every morning, restarting back to the same day, every day. Some days he breaks the clock radio. It gets rebuilt every day. One day he threatens the groundhog. One day I will have to stop him. He tells Rita to remember they had a good day together once, and then he walks over to the truck with Phil and the groundhog and steals it. The town leaders, the police, and the news van chase Phil in the truck. He's letting the groundhog drive, swerving all over the road. They drive into a rock quarry and they drive off into the hole of the quarry. The truck explodes. The next morning, he's still alive. He goes down and steals a toaster and tries to commit suicide. Another day, he steps out in front of a truck. Another day, he leaps from a building. Rita and Larry identify the body, and Larry said he was a really, really great guy. I really, really liked him a lot, awkwardly. The next day at the diner, Phil is telling Rita he's a god, not the god. I don't think, he says. She says, because you survived a car wreck? He says, I didn't just survive a wreck. I wasn't just blown up yesterday. I have been stabbed, shot, poisoned, frozen, hung, electrocuted, and burned. Every morning I wake up without a scratch on me, not a dent in the fender. I'm an immortal. Then he and Rita get into an argument about whether or not he is a god. Then he decides to show her by introducing her to everyone in the diner, including their names, hopes, dreams, and hobbies. And she's like, how do you know all these people? And he says, I told you, I know everything. In about 5 seconds, a waiter's going to drop a tray of dishes. And then he counts down, and the waiter does. Rita asks if he knows her too, and he does. He tells her what she likes and doesn't like. He told her he wakes up every day right here in Punxsutawney on Groundhog Day. He proves it by telling her that Larry is going to come in. She offers to spend the day with him to see what happens after Larry came in and proved it, right? And Phil
Yeah.
says, gee, this sounds like a science project. They sit around throwing cards into a hat, and she says, is this what you do with all of eternity? And he says, that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that tomorrow you will have forgotten all about this and you'll treat me like a jerk again. She suggests it's not a curse. The clock strikes 12 and nothing happens. He says, it's not at midnight. Jeez, not until 6 a.m. So she agrees to stay until 6 a.m. They lay around in bed, clothed, and he reads to her. He tells her while she's sleeping that she's an amazing person and confesses that he liked her since the first time he saw her and he doesn't deserve her. But if he ever could, he would love her for the rest of his life. They both fall asleep. The next morning turns 6 a.m. and he looks over it and she's gone. He gets up and gets ready, gives all the money to the homeless man, takes a coffee and donuts to Rita and Larry. He tells them he talked with the head honcho and has a suggestion of where to set up, then gives them their spots and he helps them move over there. He goes to the diner later and reads while enjoying classical music. He goes home to the home of a piano teacher and wants to take piano lessons. He pays her $1,000 and she kicks the little girl out that's learning,
That
which
was
is
so
funny.
funny.
Poor girl. The next day, he is nice to the guests asking him about Groundhog Day. He keeps taking piano lessons. He learns snow carving. He says that he missed Ned Ryerson and asks him to call in sick. It's like kind of like hitting on him, which scares Ned off that time, which is funny. He
Oh my
takes,
God, is that the part where he like runs off funnily, like
yeah,
away? Yeah,
yeah,
that's terrifying.
because he's
I
like,
love
I
that.
missed you. Can you call in sick? He takes the homeless guy to the hospital where the homeless guy died, and Phil wants to see his chart. He feeds him soup the next day. The guy still dies. He tries CPR. The guy still dies. The next day, everyone is listening to Phil's touching broadcast. He decides to catch a kid falling out of a tree later. The kid gives him no thanks. You can tell this has happened over and over. He changes a flat tire for a car full of old ladies. He does the Heimlich on a guy choking at the restaurant. That's his older brother as well. That's the town leader. Um, that's the same guy. Later, Phil goes to the party and he's playing the keyboards really well because he's gotten all those piano lessons,
Yeah.
probably hundreds at this point.
Yeah.
He then dances with Rita. The ladies whose tire he changed thanked him. The wife of the man he saved thanks him. The young couple comes up to thank him. And then there's a bachelor auction, and they auction off Phil. Rita bids the most for him. Now, Larry puts
Aw.
himself up there and he sells for 25 cents. Poor Larry.
Yeah.
Ned runs up and thanks him for buying life insurance and all the other insurances. Then they go and he carves Rita out of snow. He says he knows her face so well he could have done it with his eyes closed. He tells her he's happy now because he loves her. She's happy too. And finally, he finally became someone that she liked. It starts snowing and he walks her back. 6 a.m. the next morning, Sonny and Cher play. But this time the radio says, no, not again. And also, Rita is still in his bed. He kisses her and asks why she is here. He's happy. He checks outside and it's different. It's full of snow and it's finally February 3rd. They kiss and later Phil and Rita leave the Airbnb. He declares it's so beautiful. Let's live here. And then they run down the snowy road.
It's
So
so
that's it.
cute.
That was the recap. What did I miss?
It was so cute. Oh my God, I like too that it didn't fully end on 601, but I liked that like basically the end was at 601. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I thought that was cute. I liked that. I thought that was so cute.
Do we have a rating, a Hannah rating for this movie?
Yes, 9 out of 10.
Nine
Nine
out of
out of
10.
10.
Really? I
Yeah.
wasn't expecting that.
No, I'm a sucker for movies like this. Like I'm a sucker for this. I forget what the horror movie's called, but there's a horror movie like this. And after I Fall or whatever the movie's called. I forgot what it's called now. But the other movie that's like this, I love that movie too. So I love movies that are kind of like this. It also kind of reminded me of The Truman Show because I don't know why exactly, but like the vibe of it just kind of reminded me of The
See,
Truman Show.
I can see that. I mean, there's nobody controlling his like destiny
Yeah,
necessarily. I mean, maybe there is. We don't see that person, but yeah, I can see
yeah,
that where you're kind of stuck. Because I think in the Truman Show, all of his days are the same because they're being controlled.
yeah.
And if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yeah, no, it kind of just reminded me of that. It was sweet though. I so there was a scene. Do you remember the first day where he was getting coffee and was asking for espresso and then he ended up getting coffee?
Yeah.
I noticed that he didn't even take the coffee out with him. And I was so confused by that. I was like, why did you have this whole thing about getting coffee and wanting espresso and you didn't take the coffee with you?
I think the whole point was just to make him seem kind of like spoiled and snobby. And
Yeah.
he's like, and he's kind of like, yeah, I don't know,
Yeah,
maybe the
no.
coffee was, maybe he took it to be polite and then set it down as he was leaving. I don't
Yeah.
know.
No. I honestly really liked the town of Puxatawny. I really liked it. It kind of reminded me of my hometown because I come from a very small town. So it was like
Okay.
cute that all the people knew each other and it was like homey and I thought that was cute. And I thought the bed and breakfast was so cute. And all the people in it were very nice. I don't know. I feel like at the beginning he was being unnecessarily mean and negative for no reason.
Well, because he thinks he's too big for his britches, right? Like he thinks
Yeah.
he's very egocentric. He thinks that everything is beneath him at this point. So I think like that's a big part of that.
Yeah. It's unfortunate too because I feel like he could have left his loop so much earlier if he didn't go through like 5 stages of craziness, 5 stages of psychosis.
Well,
But
I mean, would he have learned everything? Because like he did all the good deeds, but that didn't like he did a bunch of good deeds in one of them, and it didn't change over. And
no,
he did things where he got to know everything about Rita and used that to manipulate her. And then it didn't change over. And he was like, what am I supposed to be doing? And it wasn't until he was just bettering himself and he to actually be a better person, not just appear a better person, I think. And I think that took a lot of time. And yeah, there was a lot of different stages in there. I mean, I definitely would have probably I don't think I would have driven into a quarry, but I probably would have stolen the groundhog too and gone joyriding. Um,
me
I was
too.
like, come on, little buddy.
Oh
Um,
no, no, I do that to get rid of the groundhog. I would release the groundhog. I'd be like, no, this
Yeah.
thing's terrifying. Goodbye.
I'd be like, let's go find you some woods to live in. You'll be
Yeah.
happier in here than this little tree. Although I think, I mean, there's some like obviously PETA concerns with current Groundhog Day. I know that they're pushing for Punxsutawney to actually have like a digital groundhog, which instead, uh one because is very prominent incident um of several years ago, and this might have been in the 90's or it might have been a little bit later, but they dropped the groundhog and it died from its injuries. From what I can recall. I mean, I would have to confirm that, but my memory seems to remember that they killed the groundhog once by accident. And so I think other than that, that thing is like well cared for and fed and stuff as far as I'm aware. But yeah, PETA's pushing for it to be like a digital version instead of a real life version. And
Okay.
I don't know what it'll shape up. To be honest, like if you know anything about groundhogs, like I live in the country, so groundhogs are considered by most a nuisance, not a well weatherman. Not like I don't think anyone's like, oh, how's he feeling about his shadow today? I
Yeah.
think most people are frustrated by the fact that they often dig holes under buildings and stuff and can ruin your foundation to things. Um, so I think that's usually a concern that people have. But so I don't know. I'm not really, I mean, and there's a lot of groundhogs. Like I've got one that lives in my backyard. So
You have a
um
groundhog that lives in your backyard?
I mean, if my neighbors haven't captured it, I'm sure. Yeah, I constantly battle it getting under my shed. So,
That's
um,
terrifying.
they're
What the heck?
like what they're
That's
not huge, Hannah. What they're just like the size of
no, they're so scary.
a fat
No.
bunny, essentially. They're not scary. They're out there. I do know that they can climb trees. I learned that. In a different house. They like backed up to the woods and they can climb up into a tree to like look for danger. I actually really like them in terms of just like when they're in their own environment doing their own thing. They can be a nuisance, but we've also taken up their environment. I'm kind of an environmentalist, so like
Yeah,
we've come into their environment, and so I'm trying to
this
be
is
like
true.
respectful and give him his like the groundhog that I've had. I've like tried to give him his own like if he's already or she has already moved in, I'm not going to kick them out from under my shed. I'll just wait until it's and they usually leave around some point in the season, and then I just kind of cover up their holes and fill them back in.
Yeah,
And so it's but it is a constant battle with them. I'm trying to be respectful. So
that's very
um,
sweet though. Even though I think they're kind of ugly and scary, I respect that. And
well, I
that's
mean,
sweet.
if you get close enough to a bunny or a beaver or a squirrel, you're going to see the same creepy teeth and the same weird mannerisms. So,
That's scary. I don't know. I'm not like a huge rodent person. Are groundhogs considered rodents? I don't know, but I'm not a huge rodent person. They small animals, like in that regard, really freak me out.
small animals freak me out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a rodent. But yeah, they do often live in pairs.
Oh,
Um,
that's cute.
they eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, so I do have to make sure we don't have one like sneaking into my garden during the season. But yeah, it's a
Yeah.
constant thing. I mean, I'm in the middle of the country, like I said, and there's woods and they're going to be around, so I have them around all the time.
Yeah, that makes
Um,
sense. Cool. I don't think I've
it's
ever seen one in the flesh, and I don't want to. So we're gonna keep it that way.
okay. Well, when you come to visit, make sure he's here, and then you can.
No, I'll run. I'll
Ah,
run.
Hannah's fear of groundhogs is a new fear unlocked. Cool. I'm so glad we could unlock a new fear for you in this this Groundhog Day movie on Groundhog Day. All right. Well, anything else from the Hannah's notes of wisdom?
The desserts from the cafe looked really good, and I was jealous. I got hungry. I was really jealous. And this is like my last note, really, because you covered everything. And I was like, go you. Like, how do you get all this detail? Your notes are crazy. But how how did Nancy still continue to like make love to him or whatever when he called her Rita? Like what level of self-respect? What what?
I think they were trying to make her kind of bimbo-ish, like that classic trope. I mean, this is like early 90s. You're gonna see that where women are portrayed in a way that they let things slide because of the relationship, um, or whatever. He
That's
kind of tried to
BS.
excuse it and said that she was like misheard him,
Yeah.
and then
That's
tried to distract her with "I love you, marry me."
that was
Like,
funny. I liked that.
I
But
mean, they've known
that
each other for exactly one day, so
yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Perfect. No, that was crazy. But good movie. I really liked it. I liked the romantic aspect. Rita was definitely my favorite because she was just a girl boss who held
yeah.
her own standards and she was cool. And the fact that she was a producer was cool too. I thought that was really
And
interesting.
she was
So
positive and she was
yeah,
upbeat and like she was, trying to be good at her job. So yeah, I
yeah,
thought that was really good.
yeah, I agree.
Well, let's dive into our next movie. This is a bit of a throwback for us. So we're leaving the 90s temporarily and we are watching the 1987 comedy Overboard. Overboard is a rental on YouTube, Apple TV, or Amazon Prime. The synopsis is that a snobbish and wealthy Joanna Staten is living a life of leisure with her husband Grant when she falls off their yacht and suffers amnesia. Grant takes the opportunity to get rid of her and rid himself of the demanding Joanna, but Dean, a widowed carpenter with 4 kids who once worked for Joanna on the boat, arrives and claims she's his wife. And Joanna can't remember anything about her past identity, but he has trouble believing, or sorry, but she has trouble believing that she was ever meant to be a working class mother of 4. Completely different life from what she was living before. This movie stars Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell, and my favorite Ed Herman. It's directed by Gary Marshall, who you would know from The Devil, and he was the devil in Hocus Pocus. So we saw him and his
Oh.
sister as the couple at the house playing the devil and his wife in the movie Hocus Pocus.
Okay.
So that's
Yes, I
Gary
remember.
Marshall. He directs this movie. And then Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell were actually an item by this point. They'd been an item for a couple years. And that really shows. Their spark shows up in this movie for some comedic gold. And I'm really looking forward to this rewatch. So, any thoughts or questions, Hannah, before we go?
Goldie Hawn, I love
I know.
that. I
I
love
know.
her. Oh my God. First Wives Club, like that's my girl. I love her. I'm so excited to see her and all that. And it's gonna be good. So I like the
Yeah.
plot. The plot is pretty unique. I feel like there aren't a lot of movies like that. I don't know. I've never heard of a movie like that. So it's kind of besides the amnesia thing, obviously, but like
Yeah.
falling off a boat.
Well, they
Like
did remake this movie.
they did? Oh my
Yeah, they did
God.
remake this movie in like I think 2017. But
Oh.
it's not as good. I mean, it's good, but it's not the same. It's
Okay.
definitely not the same. Well, first of all, I love any movie where a person works with their significant other, especially when they're adversaries. Um, I really like it when it just has like it's got really great 80s fashion too, which is really crazy. Which I think that you'll enjoy. Um, but yeah, it's a really great comedy. I think we'll talk more about it next time, obviously. But um
Sounds good.
yeah, I'm looking forward to this one as we get into our February watches. We're gonna hit some fun rom-coms, some comedies, those types of things. And so this will be exciting.
Yeah, I can't believe it's February already. Don't remind me. Don't remind me.
Well, soon it'll be March. So we've got some great things lined up for February, March. I'm very excited about that.
Me
But
too.
that's it for this episode of Millennial Meets Gen Z. Thank you for listening and revisiting these stories with us. Please make sure you hit that like and follow button for us. And until next time, be kind and rewind.
Thanks for listening, everybody.